Hi everyone, I'm Chantel. Heather is not here, and we're Book Wild. Before I jump into the books I read in August, I just want to say that Heather and I decided to film our wrap up separately this month. We both read a ton, and we didn't want the video to be too long. Also, the quality of the video in the last one with the Zoom meeting was not as good as we'd want it to be, so we're just trying something else out. So I am going to get into the books I read in August. At the beginning of August, Heather and I did our Shoots and Ladders TBR to pick 3 books to read for the month, and then we also kind of participated in the Newts. We did a Newts TBR. I had selected, I think, 12 books for that readathon, which was throughout the whole month of August. I did not read all my books for the Newts, but I'm not being too hard on myself. August is the busiest month of the year for me work-wise and my team, so it was crazy, and I'm so proud of myself for reading as much as I did, so I'm just gonna get right on into it. So I read 9 books in total for the month of August, 1 classic, 3 contemporaries, 1 mystery thriller, 2 fiction, 1 fantasy, and 1 nonfiction. And of those, I had 0 5 stars, 4 4 stars, 3 3 stars, 1 2 star, and 1 nonfiction that I didn't rate. So I didn't overall have a terrible reading month, but not a great reading month. A lot of the stuff I read was just like, okay. I'm gonna start off with the books I read for our Shoots and Ladders game. So the first book I read this month for our Shoots and Ladders TBR was A Man Called Uva by Fredrik Backman. This is a story about an old man who is just trying to go about his life in his later years on his own, and his neighbors, who he really doesn't like and who he's got a lot of problems with, keep interjecting themselves into his daily life. And as we see his story unfold, we see him become a part of their lives and become this found family, and it is so sweet. I love this. I gave it 4 stars, and I love Fredrik Backman's writing. As I was reading this, I kept appreciating the way that it was written, because as a reader, there are some hard things to read about, but I felt as though Backman kind of softened the blow a little bit, so you knew some things that were coming, and I loved this. It made me laugh, it made me cry. It was such a sweet story. I loved it so much. The next book I read for our Shoots and Ladders CBR was for Mood Read, and so I picked up My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. This is about a girl who has a relationship with her professor. She's 15 at the time of when it starts. I believe he's 40, and there's 2 timelines. So there's the timeline of when Vanessa is in school having the relationship, and then present day is years later when she's about 30 years old, looking back on this relationship. And it was very interesting. Heather is reading it this month in September, and I can't wait for her to pick it up because there are so many things that I want to talk to her about, particularly the psychology aspects, and there's a lot to this book in terms of character motivations and things like that. I found it really interesting. I gave it 4 stars, and I recommend it to anyone who knows what it's about and is interested in picking it up. I thought it was very well done, especially since this is a debut novel for this author. I listened to an interview with the author, and she said that she had been working on this for years and years. She'd been working on it since she was, I think, 17 years old, and she just like kind of kept visiting it and revising it and going back and forth. But I think it's got a really authentic perception for that young 15, 16, 17-year-old view, as well as the way that the main character matures and ages in the present storyline of this book, with those things in her past. I think it's very consistent, and it was definitely an interesting read. I cannot wait for Heather to pick this up. The third book that I had to read for the Chutes and Ladders CBR was The Princess Bride, and this was for a beautiful cover. I love this edition. I did read this edition, so I really took some time to appreciate the artwork in here. That was beautiful. Some of the illustrations, I loved it. I loved revisiting this story. I think I mentioned in the TBR that I used to love this movie, but I haven't seen it in so many years. I think the last time I saw it was when I was in middle school, if not like early high school. But I loved it, and it was just how I remember the movie to be. I wanted to watch the movie in August, and I didn't have time, but I am hoping to get the movie, have some time to watch the movie soon. But this is, just as it says, a classic tale of true love and high adventure. It was funny, and I loved reading everything in parentheses, the way that it's written. The author like interjects himself, and it was funny. It was really, really cute. I really enjoyed it. This was another 4 stars for me. I also read this month Tell Me How You Really Feel, which is a book I started reading in June and just took me a really long time to finish up. So this is written by Aminah Safi, and I heard really, really great things about this late last year when it came out. I was so excited for it, and I did not like this. This was a 2-star for me this month. So this is like Gilmore Girls inspired female romance, and you can see where the Gilmore Girls aspects come into play, but I did not like this. The characters, it's hate to love romance. I didn't understand why they hated each other, or they didn't even hate each other. I didn't understand why one character hated another character, and then it was hate to love, but then it was also like insta love. I really did not like this. I will say though that there was a couple lines in here, particularly about coming out and being out to your family, that really, really stood out and were very well written. So that's something I definitely want to highlight, that I think there was a couple lines in there that were really done well. And I was glad that they were in here and that people are reading that, because I think it's important. But the characters and the storyline, and there was some missing elements for me, like the friendships. There was a lot that didn't make sense to me, but in terms of like a light, contemporary, easy read, I think this is definitely that. A fun romance, this is definitely that. But I just would have liked a little bit more depth and like a little bit more consistency with the characters and their storylines. There was a lot that just didn't make sense, or that was very convenient. So, and I think because I had such high expectations, because I love Gilmore Girls. I watched Gilmore Girls back in the day, and it's one of those shows that's kind of always on in the background for me. This just, I think I had such high expectations of it because of that. So now getting on to the books that I read for the Newts readathon. The Newts is supposed to be read in a specific order, depending on like what Newts you're sitting for. You have to read them in order. I don't remember what that order was, nor did I follow that in the month of August. Yeah, I did not follow that order, just because of we were so busy at work, and I did not have a lot of time to read physically, so I was trying to get as many audiobooks as I could, and audiobooks from the library versus when they were available to me on Scribd. I couldn't make it work in an order, so I did it in my own order. But this month I read Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. This was good. This is a 3-star for me. I think I'm coming around to, I'm not huge on mystery thrillers. This is about a child survivor of a massacre. So when our main character was 4 years old, I think, her entire family was murdered, and her older brother is suspected to be the murderer. He lived and has been in prison. This takes place 20 something years later. I think our main character here is about 30 years old. It's taking place present day is when she's 30 years old, and she has never had contact with her brother, who is in prison since, and she is revisiting this childhood trauma and the events of that night, and coming to terms with what happened to her. It was an interesting read. I certainly didn't not like it, and the last couple years I've been trying to read more widely, so and a lot of people on BookTube really like mystery thrillers, and that's the content that I'm consuming, so I wanted to pick up a bunch, and I think I'm coming to the terms with these are not my kinds of stories. I find them interesting, and as I'm reading, I'm like wanting to know what's happening, so I typically read these pretty quickly, but they don't stick with me like other stories do. And I haven't read many mystery thrillers, so I'm not good at predicting. Like, I don't know all the tropes, and I don't know all the little things that go into these kinds of stories, but this one was pretty predictable. I predicted the ending pretty early on, and thinking, well, this is my prediction, but that's probably not what's gonna happen. And it was. For me, that I was excited to know that I had predicted the ending, so I know for other people, if they can predict the ending, they don't like it as much, but this was a 3-star for me. I probably will read the other mystery thrillers I have on my shelves, but I won't go out of my way to get any more. Again, they're not bad. I think they're just not for me. I next read The Earth, My Butt, and Other Big Run Things. This is by Carolyn Mackler. This, I think, was for the prompt to read a funny book. The title made me laugh, and this book was really cute and light. It is a young adult, and I think it's geared towards the younger end of young adult. I feel like our main character is 15, 16 years old, but I think 15 or 16-year-olds wouldn't necessarily be reading this. I think it would be for like 13, 14-year-olds. But there was a lot of good conversations in this book about body positivity and confidence and sex, and like coming into your teenage years and like kissing a boy for the first time. And this was a really light, fun, easy read, but it was good. I recommend it. If you have someone in your life who's 12 or 13 or 14 years old, and you want to recommend something good to them, that's, like I said, body positive, sex positive, and just has important conversations about coming into yourself as a young adult. I thought this did a good job, and it was fun. The next book I read was The Serpent King by Jeff Zenter. When I picked this up this month, I had no idea. I actually swapped it out for a different book on my Nudes TBR. It was the prompt was a book with sky on the cover, and I think that this is beautiful. When I bought this a couple years ago, I don't remember, I don't even know if I had heard anybody talk about it. It was a couple dollars, so I picked it up at a thrift store and haven't heard anything about it since then. So the audiobook was available to me at the library, so I picked this up, and I loved the first half of this. At first I was like, what is this about? Actually, I should say what this is about. So this book takes place in a small town in Tennessee where our main character, Dill, is the son of a minister. Dill is the son of a minister who has fallen from grace, so to speak. Dill's father has been imprisoned, and what he was known for was handling poisonous rattlesnakes in their congregation. At school, Dill is bullied by all of his peers. He has two best friends, Lydia and Travis, who give him relief from struggles he's feeling at home and struggles he's feeling at school with other kids. And their friendship is so sweet and wonderful to read about. I loved it. One of my favorite things in books is to read about a friend group and found family, and that's what this is. I loved it so much. At first I was like, what am I reading? But these rattlesnakes and this minister father and there was a lot on Dale, our main character, in his life that I can't relate to. And at the first couple chapters of this book, I was just like, what am I reading? But then as I got more into the story and into their friendship, I just absolutely fell in love with these characters, and I thought that they were really well-rounded, and I loved them. It was about halfway, I don't remember now if it was halfway or like 2/3 of the way in, something happens in this book, and the book kind of changed from there, and I continued to enjoy it, but I felt like the characters' reactions to this big event were not consistent with the actual event. So I had a little bit of a hard time with that. But I did really enjoy it. I think there is good conversations about friendship and also just, again, like coming into your own and during your high school years and realizing like what is important for kids at that age to do, and struggling with expectations from their parents and what path they should go down in life versus what path they want to go down themselves. This was a really good book for that, and I liked it. I definitely recommend it if you are thinking about picking it up. It was a quick read. I don't know if I mentioned this. This was a 4-star for me. I think it would have been a 5-star. It was a 5-star up until like that 2/3 mark, but overall 4 stars. The last book I read for the Nudes Readathon was Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is about our main character, Maggie, is a monster hunter. This is in a post-apocalyptic world where monsters exist and there are god-like creatures as well. Maggie has been hired by a family to find their missing daughter who has been taken by a monster, and we follow her as she is a badass monster fighter. I liked this story. I thought the plot was well done, but I think I wanted more from it. The writing was good, the plot was good, the characters were okay. It didn't make me feel anything. There is a romance in here. There's also our main character experiences loss. She goes through a lot. And while I liked the writing and I liked the characters, I didn't feel any kind of emotional connection with the story or the characters or what was happening. And for books, for me to really like them, I need that, and I just didn't get that with this book. So this was a 3-star for me. It is a series. I don't know if I will continue in the series. I liked it, but it didn't stick with me as much as I would have liked it to. So yeah, 3 stars. I did also read Invisible Woman this month, and I don't have the book with me because it was an audiobook from the library, but I will put the picture here. And this was a nonfiction book. talking about the data gap for women in studies and how there are so many aspects of day-to-day life and research we have studied and put and researched, but women are missing in that research, and there's a lot that is not taken into account for the female body and what that means for females. It talked about so many different things. It was very broad, but I think it was very well written, and the author tried to cover a lot in, you know, not a lot of pages. And I just, it was so interesting. And I think that this book by no means is like an end all. I think it's a starting point for a lot of these topics, but now that I'm just thinking about it, you know, I'm so interested to pick up more books that kind of further her questions and her ideas. But basically she's talking about, you know, where is the research? Where are women in this research, and where do our experiences come into play? Because it is different. Our bodies are different. The way we go about things is different, and that's not taken into account for user experience or medicine or things like that. And it's so important. Some of these things are life-saving things, especially when we talk about medicine and procedures and childbirth. And there is such a data gap, and I really enjoyed reading this. I thought it was very well written, and a good starting point. So I am definitely interested in picking up more books like this. If you guys know of any, definitely let me know, because yeah, I want to pick some up soon. As some honorable mentions, I did start Red Seas Under Red Skies by Scott Lynch. I don't even remember how far I got into this. Not far. I didn't finish this one, but I liked what I read of it, and this is the sequel to Lies of Locke Lamora, which I did like, and I'm interested in continuing the series. I just don't know when I will pick it up. And then actually this was one of the first books I picked up in August, was Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. I am really enjoying this. I haven't picked it up in a while. I have a little less than 100 pages in this. I just did not have a lot of time to pick up books physically, and I was for sure making the priority my Chutes and Ladders book. So this is a dystopian book set in the future, and it's about censorship and the perils that come along with that. It's very interesting. I did not read this in high school, as many people did. I find it really interesting. I'm only 82 pages in, but it's a short book. It's 160 pages this copy is. So yeah, I definitely want to finish this and continue reading this, but I just was not able to in the month of August. These are the books that I read in the month of August. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.